Hello BookTube, and this video is going to be me doing the Shakespeare Journey Tag. The tag was created by Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and Nicole at A Day of Small Things. And I was tagged in the Shakespeare Journey Tag by Gavin at Genre Books. All their channels will be in the description below. I should say that I've got the prompts and everything else I'm going to be reading from for this tag on the right here. So if you see me looking that way, that's what I'm doing. Prompt number 1. What was your first experience of reading Shakespeare and what was it like? Well, my first experience reading Shakespeare, I think, like most people, was at school. And it was reading Romeo and Juliet in, I think, year 8. I didn't particularly like it. It wasn't an issue with the language. It was the fact that it was Romeo and Juliet, and it was a love story, and I wasn't, as a 12-year-old boy, 12, 13-year-old boy, particularly interested in that. Though I didn't have an issue with the language. The language, which I know a lot of people have, wasn't a problem for me. It's always made sense. So it was Romeo and Juliet, pretty much. That was my first reading experience. And though I didn't particularly enjoy Romeo and Juliet, it didn't put me off Shakespeare at all. Problem number 2. Has reading a Shakespeare play ever brought you to tears? What scene was it, and where were you when it happened? No, that's never happened with a Shakespeare play. I've got to say, very few things can, reading them, bring me to tears. And I've never had it with a Shakespeare play. Prompt number 3. Are there any people who have played a significant role in your Shakespeare journey? Yes, 2. Each grandparent. One, it was my maternal grandfather, Grandad Derek, who, when I was very small, so this would have been in the mid-90s, I was visiting him, and he had the telly on, and there was a BBC animated version of Macbeth on the TV, and I can remember vividly the animation because it was very strange. It was something of a sort of surreal style, and Brian Cox was voicing Macbeth, and I've always remembered that. And years later, when I was about when we started doing Shakespeare at school, and after we'd done Romeo and Juliet, we moved on to Macbeth, and in the run up to that, this was year 8 we did Romeo and Juliet, and in year 9 we did Macbeth, and we were told by the English teacher that we were going to do Macbeth, and so I actually found that animated version out and watched it during the summer holidays. So my grandmother Derek influenced me there, and the other person is my paternal grandmother, Nanny Barbara, who, as with a lot of my reading, influenced it, and she influenced it by she showed me the 2 versions of Henry V. The 1944 version, Technicolor, directed by Laurence Olivier, who also obviously plays Henry V in it. And then later on, she got me out of the library the 1989 version by Kenneth Branagh, and it's because of seeing those 2 films that that is arguably my favourite Shakespeare play. That's pretty much it. It certainly wasn't the teachers at school. The English teachers at my school, like much of their colleagues at my school, were not inspiring people, with the exception of my history teacher and the headmaster, who was quite good. The English department seemed to particularly have uninspiring individuals. I remember there was one teacher who eventually became, whilst I was at the school, the head of English, who, in the middle of a poetry class, informed the entire class that she did not see the point of teaching poetry at all. That sort of gives you the idea of the English teachers. And also, I remember when we did our GCSE, my GCSE. So this is if you're not from the UK, the GCSEs are the school, your final exams you do before you leave school. We're doing an English test, one of the English tests, and they didn't have enough books to go around for. In fact, I think it was we were doing Shakespeare. It might have been Macbeth. And they didn't have enough copies of Macbeth to go around for everybody that you could sort of use to sort of for quotations and one or two other bits in it. And the teachers decided that instead of treating everybody equally and not giving out the copies of Macbeth they had, they decided just to give it to the students in the highest sets to make sure that they got the best results. So, yeah, my granddad and my nan were very much significant in my Shakespeare journey, but my teachers, especially those in the English department at my school, were definitely not. However, now to get back to the actual prompts and off the my rant. Prompt number 4: do you have a favourite book or film about Shakespeare? Yes, it's Shakespeare in Love. I've rolled it up. In fact, we saw that. I was actually shown that for the first time in English class as a part of teaching Shakespeare. I'm not sure whether that's a very good age about teaching Shakespeare, but it's a really enjoyable film. And now that I've thought about it, I'm going to have to rewatch it sometime in the next few days. Prompt number 5. Which character in Shakespeare do you most resembles you, and in what ways? Well, can't actually think of anyone that resembles me in any way. I suppose you could say Sir John Falstaff, because of my rotund physique, for example, but that's the closest I can get to. In a way, that's probably the closest I can get to a character that resembles me. Number 6. Which play would you most like to see performed in a theatre, and why? And that would be Henry V, because, as I say, it's my favourite Shakespeare play. And I'd like to see it performed because it's really interesting. It's purely because it's my favourite. Though running up second to that would be Richard III. And also, well, actually, jointly with Macbeth. But first and foremost, it would be obviously Henry V. Prompt number 7. Which actor throughout history would you most like to have seen play Hamlet whilst he was in his prime? I've actually got 2 actors I can think of. One would be an actor called John Finch, who was a British film actor from the 1960s up until I think he died in the 2000s. I've seen him. The first thing I actually saw him in was a thing called Lady Caroline Lamb from the early 70s, where he played Lord Melbourne, the future. I think she's Lord Melbourne. No, Earl Grey. I think it's Lady Caroline. No, it is Lord Melbourne. Sorry, who future Prime Minister was her husband. I think the film Lady Caroline Lamb is from 1971. I think Glenda Jackson plays Lady Caroline Lamb, or I may be wrong. Anyway, he'd be one of my choices because he has a very distinctive look, and I can imagine him playing a very distinctive Hamlet. The other one would be the late Sir Christopher Lee, who I'm not sure I don't think he ever played Shakespeare on film. He may have done it in a theatre occasionally, but he has a perfect voice and he looks Shakespearean, so him playing Hamlet would be interesting. Prompt number 8. Deliver your favourite speech or soliloquy from Shakespeare. Right, just bear with me a second. Let me just get into it. This is John of Gaunt's speech from Richard II, Act 2, Scene 1. So let me just get the whole thing here. Right. Methinks I am a prophet new inspired, and thus expiring do foretell of him. His rash, fierce blaze of riot cannot last, for violent fires soon burn out themselves. Small showers last long, but sudden storms are short. He tires betimes that spurs too fast betimes. With eager feeding food doth choke the feeder. Light vanity, insatiable cormorant, consuming means, soon preys upon itself. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, this demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war, this happy breeder of men, this little world, this precious stone set in a silver sea, which serves it as the office of a wall, or a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of royal kings, feared by their breed and famous by their birth, renowned for their deeds as far from home for Christian service and true chivalry, as is the sepulchre in stubborn jury of the world ransom, blessed Mary's Son, this land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation throughout the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it, like a tenement or a pelting farm, England bound in with triumphant sea, whose rocky shores beat back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with blotted ink and rotted parchment bounds, that England that was wont to conquer others hath now shamefully made a conquest of itself. Would the scandal vanish with my life? How happy then were my ensuing death. So that's my favourite speech. Right, so I'll move on. Prompt number 10. What tips would you give to intimidated readers to come to Shakespeare for the first time? Actually, on this prompt, I agree with Gavin, which is that seeing it performed is far better when you're first introduced to Shakespeare than reading it. I would recommend and luckily now because of YouTube, you can actually see quite a lot of performances of Shakespeare's plays there. So my advice would be find a play that most interests you, and then find a performance on YouTube to watch it, or find a film version. So, for example, if we take Henry V, you've got two great choices in the 1944 film or the 1989 film by Kenneth Branagh, and then of course with Macbeth you've got huge numbers of adaptations. The one two that I most enjoy are the 1970s one by I've forgotten the name. John Finch plays Macbeth in it. I seem to remember. I think he plays Macbeth in it. By Roman Polanski is the director. That's a really good one. There's also one that was done a few years ago by the BBC called, which was done in a sort of modern style with Patrick Stewart playing Macbeth, which is well worth a watch. And then of course there's Richard III. My favourite Richard III film adaptation is the one done by Ian McKellen, which was in 1995, which has sort of interwar period setting. And so, if you're interested in it, I would recommend going for either one of the films, because the films are usually really good, or go for one of the adaptations, either a radio version. For example, when I, as I said earlier, when I was talking about the Macbeth animated version, I also, when I was watching that, I also found an audiobook version done by audio version done by the BBC in the 90s, which was also had Brian Cox playing it, and that was really good. Or look on YouTube for a performance that you can find, and that should help you very much sort of help guide you into Shakespeare, especially with the language, because as Gavin said in his video, when you hear the language spoken, it helps you get into the rhythm of it and understand it far better than you would necessarily just reading it on the page. Tag number 11. Oh, well, I've answered this already, but which is your favourite Shakespeare play and why? Well, it's Henry V, and the reason why it's my favourite is because it's essentially a war film, and I'm a big fan of war films. I grew up watching them as a kid. Another sort of influence than my Nanny Barbara. She was a big war film fan, and so obviously watching Henry V, when I saw both the 44 version and the 1989 version, were to me, first and foremost, not the plays of Shakespeare, but war films. And obviously, in the case of the 1944 version, that's a war film created very much as war propaganda, as much as an adaptation of Shakespeare during the Second World War. So that's very much plays into the very much. it's the play is very much, to my mind, a war in the war genre, and so it's very much, and so that's why it's one of my favourites. Why it's my favourite. As I say, the second sort of runners up, so both holding joint second place would be in that case Macbeth and Richard III. And then prompt number 12. Tag other booktubers. Well, in this I'm going to tag Mark from Book Time with Elvis, Sean D. Stamford from Sean D. Stamfast, Jenny Parks, purely to pile on the pressure, Steve Donahue, and also Ven from Ven's Corner, because I know I will, as will Noah the bookworm, enjoy him doing this prompt, even if he almost certainly won't. So with that, booktube, I'll say goodbye, and I will see you later.